Hi, this is Sam Lagana with the Los Angeles Rams. Whose house? You're listening to the Los Angeles Rams UK podcast. Undenied worldwide.
Hello and welcome to the LA Rams UK podcast with me, Chris, for one of our specials that we said we're going to be here in the off season. And joining me is no other than Hannah Wilkes from Sky Sports. How are you, Hannah?
I'm very well, thank you, Chris. How are you?
Yeah, good to have you back. Thank you again for joining us again after a interesting end to our season. How are you feeling? Has the jet lag gone yet?
It's been a good week, hasn't it, for Rams fans? Yeah, I finally shook the jet lag. I woke up this morning and it was 6:45 rather than 4 a.m. I was like, yes, I've been it. I'm feeling really good. I actually rewatched the game yesterday as well because it was all a bit of a brilliant blur. So I sat down yesterday afternoon and treated myself to watching it back. It was slightly less stressful the second time knowing how it ended, but I still was still like a third quarter going, no, this is so ugly. And then was really tense the final 5 minutes.
Let me take you right back to the start of last week. So you were there for the whole of Super Bowl week. So as a Rams fan, you're in LA. Talk to me about the week. You're obviously doing your bits for obviously Sky Sports through the week. And how did it feel and the momentum as you got up to the actual game day?
So I sort of had to compartmentalize my Rams fandom, to be honest, because I had a lot of work to do. But yeah, it was great. We got there Sunday, and the first thing you noticed was that the Super Bowl takes over an entire city, so every bar has promotions based on sponsors and all the rest of it. The buses had Go Rams on their like destination boards as well. There's Super Bowl signage hanging off every lamppost, and it's on every big building, so it takes over the entire city. And that really built, particularly from Thursday onwards, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like it was kind of bubbling quite gently, like Radio Row, where all the broadcasters are, was relatively quiet, partly to do with the fact that all the media availability was still online, so there wasn't the need for people to be there so early. And then by sort of Thursday, Friday, like the fans were coming in, you felt that lift in energy. And then by Saturday, like the city was almost like boiling over with it. So outside the convention centre where the Super Bowl experience was, the queue was like wiggling around the block. You had loads of fans there from different teams. You had 49ers jerseys, Seahawks jerseys, some Patriots fans. I was talking to some fans, and this one woman was just like, I'm a Saints fan. I hate the Rams, but I live in Los Angeles, so I'm behind them because they're the home team. So you really felt that excitement in the air. And then, it was, I had to very much compartmentalize to stay focused on the job at hand and not be biased, obviously.
Well, very much so.
It was brilliant. And it's not the first time I've seen the Rams in a Super Bowl. So I was putting it to the back of my mind for most of the week, because the previous one had been such a disappointment that I kind of didn't think about it too much, didn't think about the game too much, just everything around it.
Well, it's got to be different when you're doing Baldy's breakdowns as he's scraping it into the beach. That's probably a book off the bucket list, right?
Oh my God, what a day at work. I mean, look, I have to confess, I obviously wasn't actively working during that. I was guarding the camera kit, which was an important job, because at one point I did actually, because we had to film it right by the shoreline so that the sand was a bit wetter so you could mark it out. Yeah. And then I was sat there with like Pelly cases and tripods. I was like, this tide's getting a little bit closer, and the cameraman and producer were all over there. So I'm then like lugging all the stuff back. So although they all laughed the fact that I was like sunbathing on a Pelly case, I was working hard. And it's just awesome as well. Like, it was great. We did a sports news cross from the beach. And kind of had to prelude it with, we're not being jammy. This is actually our work location for the afternoon.
Tough,
but you've got to take those wins and enjoy the perks, because there was a lot of long hours and a lot of time spent in a windowless convention center where you lose all track of time. So
well, that's that part of the world, isn't it? If you're not in LA, you're in Vegas, and you have no idea what time of day it is. So take us to game day. You wake up on game day. You're in LA. You're going to work. And you're about to see.
I resent the bunny ears, thank you.
But that is a phenomenal place to be, in SoFi Stadium, and that would be your first time, I take it, in SoFi, as well as many others. What is it like stepping through the doors of that place and the razzmatazz of it, basically?
So we'd been to the exterior of SoFi a couple of times during the week, and it's obviously really impressive, but it's on lockdown throughout the week so they can keep it all kind of secret. And on Saturday, we'd actually been in the stadium because we had to go and see where all our different spots were. And it's blimmin' impressive. And I've been telling this to everyone because it still blew my mind, but where you go in is the 6th level of the stadium.
Yeah.
So where you walk in from outside is 6th level, and then the
so
field is
behind me. It's
drop.
kind of like here.
Yeah, so that's kind of like ground level, as it were. So it's sunk because it's in the LAX flight path. So that takes some getting used to, and it is just, I've never seen anything like it. Like, it's just such a bowl, and it's just so beautifully done. And it's going to sound such a obnoxious thing to say, but it's such a flow to it. If you know what I mean? Like in some stadiums, it's like a bit bitty, and you've got angles. It just feels like one continuous sort of circle of a building. And on Sunday when we headed over early because you just never know with traffic and getting through security office, it's quite tight. And every block we drove through, going through Inglewood, like there's flags up, there's people selling lemonade, snacks, merch, selling their driveway for parking. Like the whole area was very much making the most of it. And it was fun watching the fans trickle in. So like the first hit I did was no one there. Then got to go down field side, which was amazing. And I didn't really want to leave. I'm sorry, I live on a one-way street and someone's just driven up it the wrong way, which is slightly concerning. That's not supposed to go that way. So field side, and we were meant to be only down there to do like 1 5-minute hit on the feed, but no one was rushing us away, so very much stayed. And that was really cool because you just sort of, there weren't many Rams players warming up. The Bengals players came up early, and I was with Brian Balding, and he went, "That's really interesting." And I was like, "Why, Baldy?" And he made the observation that in Super Bowl 53, the Rams came out really early to warm up.
Okay, interesting.
A bit overawed by the occasion. Someone else has just gone the wrong way up this street. What's going on? Sorry. They were obviously really overawed by the occasion. Yeah. And there was none of that from them this time. There were a few Bengals players out early, but the Rams didn't appear until sort of like, the time that they usually would.
Oh, that's interesting.
But Goldie found that quite telling. And one of the lessons that, Sean McVay probably learned was, helps it's their home stadium, but like don't get overawed. Like it is just a game day.
And that's something we spoke about a couple of times on the podcast, is that, the last Super Bowl didn't go to plan. We all understand that. But I think we saw that McVay had learned from it, and some of a lot of the roster was obviously there again in 2018. So I think you actually seen the change of the attitude to a lot of the players.
And I think the good thing is as well, a lot of the sort of starting players now actually weren't involved in that, right? You look at the offense. So Cooper Kupp was on the field that day, clean slate. Tyler Higbee was on the field this time, not great. But it's different quarterback. There's lots of different parts there, but I think it's obviously those lessons have been learned. So that was quite telling. And then watching the stands fill, it felt like, and it might have just been where our reporter position, where it felt like there were a lot of Bengals fans. When I then walked around the other side of the stadium to go to the press box, I realized that actually they had blue on one side and orange on the other. And it was deafeningly loud. Like when the teams ran out, it almost became white noise because it went so loud.
And you picked that up off the TV, the atmosphere, you could feel it building. Obviously, when they kept going to Baldy, and obviously we've seen you obviously stood with him, and then Kay was on, you could feel it build every time they went and had the conversation. And I think you could actually hear it in Kay's voice, where she was getting more excited as she was talking. And every time she came back on, Neil was like, calm down.
It was so loud that I was stood about 6 feet from Kay, social distancing, and I couldn't hear what she was saying.
No way.
I was stood behind the camera and I couldn't hear her. It was that kind of buzz.
No way. Well,
I could hear Baldy because that man talks at a very high volume quite naturally.
Well, I think him and maybe Dwayne Johnson to actually do the start of the game, probably on par. So let's get into the game very quickly. I know we're obviously against the clock here, but I appreciate your time, Hannah. We obviously open up. We get the touchdown with OBJ, and things are starting to tick really nicely. And we obviously then pick up Cooper Kupp on a wide out to the corner, and then OBJ goes down. How was that felt in the stadium? Because at that point, that really felt like a big momentum shifter in the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I have to say, kind of quietened SoFi across the board, because when you see a player go down with no contact, you know that something's gone ping. You know what I mean? Like if it's a big hit and it takes a while to get up, it might just be sort of a bit of like being winded or just like shaking off the shock of it. But when someone goes down non-contact, you just think that's not good. And the way OBJ had been playing, I think I tweeted that this guy is playing like he could be about to become a father at any moment. He doesn't want to miss it. Little did we know that was literally Van Jefferson's life.
That's
That
crazy.
went under the radar. He was playing so well. He was everywhere, and you could tell he was very much, he'd risen to the occasion. So it did sort of suck the air out of SoFi a little bit, because no matter who you're rooting for, right, you want to see the best players on the field in that game.
Definitely. And I think
when Joe Burrow got
it would have changed the whole momentum of the game. I think we would have.
Well, it did.
Them out,
and
really.
I think when Joe Burrow got hit quite badly by he went down under Von Miller and twisted a knee.
Twisted his ankle, yeah.
In the fourth quarter, and you see him really hobbling off. And obviously, at that point, it's really tense. The game is on the line, but you still, no matter who you support, you want those players on the field. Like you don't want anyone to miss out on the biggest game of their career.
Of course.
So I think for OBJ, I'm just so glad that the Rams got the win, because everyone was tweeting, "I'm so sad for OBJ," and I'm thinking, well, the game's not over yet. He has scored a touchdown. He has done his job for as long as he could. He was leading the team in scrimmage yards when he got hurt, so it was a huge problem for the Rams. And I think if the Rams had lost that game, that's the moment that you look to, because it took them a long time to adjust. They couldn't get anything going offensively in the third quarter, and it was painful to watch. But he did the job. He did his job.
Definitely.
He got his ring. He hit all his incentives, so he's got $3 million bonus.
He'll do quite well out of it, won't he?
But yeah, and I just, they kept seeing shots of him on the big screen, and you felt for him. You see the real emotion. I think what's fascinating with OBJ is the way he left or was booted out of Cleveland, and the treatment he got in the press. When you see a guy stood on the sideline of the Super Bowl crying because he can't be helping his team, and then sobbing when they get the win, you see what it means to these people, and that what you may read and hear, a lot of it's just narrative. It's not actually a reflection of who these people are.
I said exactly the same thing on our podcast this week. You see a completely mature, for me, OBJ in this team, where there's such hype around him, bad things, good things. But what you actually see now is a footballer that wants to actually win, and he knows that he can.
So I had a conversation this week. I think it was LeGarrette Blount. It was last week, obviously, Super Bowl week, because we'll go into one. He spoke to me about OBJ, and because he's his friend, he said, "I'm rooting for the Rams. I want my boy OBJ." And I asked him, I said, "What's been the difference with OBJ since he became a Ram?" And LeGarrette said, "He's appreciated, he's valued, he feels like part of the team." He was much stronger. I don't want to paraphrase him too much. He had some quite strong words on the subject, but just basically it comes down to appreciation and feeling valued. And he went into that team expecting to be wide receiver 3. He was fine with that. All this thing, he's got to be the star. No, he didn't. He just needed to be an offense that he could contribute to. And the way things turned out, obviously, before he'd even been to practice, he gets bumped up to wide receiver 2 because of Robert Woods. So yeah, I think it just says a lot about perception and reality. And I'm just really happy for him. They got the win, because I think mentally he'd have really struggled.
No, I agree.
If he'd been out of the game and they lost, and he's got that injury, which could have impacted him playing next year, I think there'd be a lot to recover from psychologically for anyone.
No, agree. And there was also, obviously, as we come into the third quarter, there was the no call on Ramsey for the face mask, and how that, I don't know, they didn't really show it as much on TV, because I think the reaction potentially as they shown it on the big screen probably was quite vocal. So
I'm not going to lie, it passed me by. It was through Twitter. I don't think we really saw it on the big screen. It was through Twitter that I found out about that. And I was like, what? And I was watching the replays. Obviously, you're looking in 7 different places at once when you're in the stadium. Watching it back, I think it was a bad call. I was just having a conversation with some other people, though, and they reckon that Jalen Ramsey was already on his way down. But then I think you've got to look at a balance across the game, right? If the Rams had lost, we'd probably be looking at that and be outraged. Yeah. I think Zach Taylor was waiting for a call to be made, because he wasn't celebrating that touchdown.
No, he was looking at it as well, yeah.
A few of those PI calls and penalties the Bengals got in that final 2-minute drive were also questionable. So I think across the balance of the game, it works out, and maybe actually the Rams had the slightly better rub of the officiating on definitely. Balance.
It's like you do this for a living, Hannah, because my next thing I want to talk about is that last drive. How good is that segue? I think for me, and I've spoken about this a couple of times, the reason why you bring Matthew Stafford in, we sat here last year just after the Matthew Stafford announcement had happened. I think we spoke about 3 or 4 days later. And I think the whole reason we brought him in was for that drive. because I don't see anybody. Well, there's potentially other quarterbacks in the NFL that would have done that, but to have his record in that kind of situation in the fourth quarter comeback, you wouldn't want anybody else with the ball. And now we've seen the no look pass involved within it. It just blows it up completely.
I completely agree. I think obviously I was having the fan stress reaction, and all professionals have gone out the window by this point. And I did get told off by, I think it was the cameraman from the Mexican broadcasters next to us for like jumping up and down and making the platform shake. He was like, "Stop jumping." I was like, "Sorry." But that was what I kept telling myself when it's, getting towards 2 minutes and you're thinking, we need to get a touchdown here. We're not really getting much going, and the run game hasn't been working for the full game. What is happening? What I kept telling myself was, it's Matthew Stafford. He wants his ball. He wants the ball in his hands with a game on the line late in the fourth quarter. That is where he thrives. And and Cup is on the field, and he will get it to Cup eventually. But my God, I mean, I don't think. Do you know what, the only other quarterback wide receiver connection in the league that I think could have got the score in that situation is actually the Bengals. You know what I mean? Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. That's the other. They're the other two that I would trust to get that score there. So thank God it was this way around.
Yeah.
It was stressful. There was a couple of errant throws. You're thinking, oh, what are we doing there? But then also, and this is the thing that it's taken me a full season to actually relax into. 3rd and long isn't terrifying anymore for Rams fans.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Jared Goff days? It'd be like 3rd and 5. You'd be like, oh.
You'd already be thinking about the next drive, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we're not getting a first down here. We're getting, you know what I mean? Whereas now it's like, oh, it's like 3rd and 17, and you're like, yeah, fine. It's still like taking some getting used to. I mean, the last sort of series to get to that touchdown was absolutely wild when you look at the flags flying in, and it was confusing in the stadium. You couldn't quite hear what the referee was saying because it was so loud. So I was like, who are these penalties on? But yeah, I mean, it had to be Cup, right? Like when Matthew Stafford tried the QB sneak, I was like, no way in hell are you scoring a touchdown here. You don't do that. It's going to go to Cup eventually. That's how this game is won.
Yeah, and the relationship between the two of them is very much talked about, and it's just. I actually saw a clip. Sorry to interrupt you, but this just shows you just how obsessed those two are. I saw a clip. I think it was on Andrew Whitworth's Instagram. Saw it this morning, so it must have been yesterday. They're at a hotel in Vegas. Obviously, this huge suite, just chilling. And Matthew Stafford's just like sat there, clearly having a drink. And Stafford and Cup are practicing their no-look passes back and forth across this hotel room. Like, you just won the Super Bowl. And Stafford's still there, like, no-look passing Cooper Cup in a hotel room in Vegas. Like, cool. No way. Cool. Well, I don't know if you've seen it. It came out that apparently it was on Kelly Stafford's podcast, I think, that Cooper Cup had texted Matthew Stafford the morning after the Super Bowl to work out how much time they'd spent together outside of the facility. And it's something crazy, like 300 hours.
And that's the difference.
And Cooper Cup has a tape room in his house. He has a film room in his house. Wide receivers don't do that.
He has a film room in his house. He goes to as many quarterback meetings as he can so that he knows what Matthew Stafford or John Wolford. John Wolford's a Super Bowl winner, by the way. How great is that?
Yeah, Cooper Cup maybe needs to work on his throws, but so that's a different point.
I initially, from where I was sat, I initially blamed Matthew Stafford, and then I watched the replay and I was like, oh, Cooper Cup. No. OBJ, he can throw the football. We saw that.
Definitely.
But Cooper, no. Especially after Joe Mixon done it so well, it was quite embarrassing.
And I think that's the reason why that came into the play, to be honest, because McVay sometimes like, no, that's my kind of ball.
Yeah. Hey,
so we obviously,
the Cooper Cup, he prepares like a quarterback, and he knows where Matthew Stafford wants him. And when you look at all the different angles and replays of both his touchdowns in that game, like the first one, they thought he was blocking, like, because that's what he's been doing so well as well, because he's been such a target. Like he's such a blooming good football player, and he should have been overall MVP, not just Super Bowl MVP. Don't get me started.
Let's
not do that.
But then the other person that potentially could have MVP to end the game is my guy AD. To what he did, to how he did it at the end of the game, to then see how he's now reacting. James Corden's show, completely drunk. He's not wearing shirts on the parade. Who cares? The man's now got the key of LA.
I don't think Aaron Donald has been sober since about 7:30 p.m. on Sunday, and I am here for it. And I also imagine that like it takes quite a lot to get him drunk because he's an absolute
very much so.
Baldy, casually, while we were fieldside on Sunday, was like, "Oh, I'm just going to go say hi to Aaron Donald." And I was a bit like, "Take me with you." Obviously, I was like, "No, I'll be going to stay here." And he was like, "You give that guy a hug." I was like, "You hugged him?" He's like, "You give him a hug, and it's just like it's like hugging steel. Like he's a rock." But I have to say, he was my shout for MVP pre-game.
Yeah.
In the immediate aftermath of the game, I was like, he should have been MVP. Having watched the full game back, the TV coverage rather than the wild ride of being there, I do think on balance, it was Cup. He contributed so much throughout the game, and actually, Aaron Donald got the job done when it needed to be done and proved defense wins championships. But I don't think his performance was a complete MVP performance through all 4 quarters. But I'm with you. I just blooming love him. Absolutely love him. All this talk of him retiring, I was like, absolutely not. He's hungry. He's a winner.
He's coming back. He's running it back.
Yeah, and also as well, just like, it kind of annoyed me that one of the first questions to him post-game was about his retirement. I'm like, let the guy live. Have the moment.
It was a strange one how it came out right before kickoff as well. That was nowhere on anybody's radar.
It's just people looking for stories. Yeah, it's just looking for extra narratives and stories, isn't it? It's like Sean McVay was going to retire on Monday.
I don't think so.
Can you imagine Sean McVay without football to coach? I mean, I'm sure he drives his fiance mad anyway.
I was going to say, he wouldn't be allowed at home. And what did you do after the game?
Oh, it was super glamorous. By the time we got out of the stadium and got back to the hotel, it was about 9:30. So me, my producer and cameraman just went to the hotel bar. About 2 hours later, our tech guys joined us.
You weren't at the Drake party?
Honestly, everyone always thinks you do some glamorous after, but we didn't get out of the stadium for like a full 2.5 hours after it all finished because we were doing stuff.
Yeah.
And then everyone's whacked because you've just done 8 days of really intense work. So actually, it's really not very glamorous.
Amazing. And we obviously spoke, and the season of it as a whole, it's been a roller coaster. And I think the Super Bowl as a Rams fan probably put us through how our season has been all year. And I think, why did we expect anything any different?
100% Matthew Stafford said it, right? He was like, that game represented our season. It wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
It was up and down, but we found a way. And I mean, being a Rams fan is exhausting. I mean, it doesn't matter what your team is and what the sport is. It's always exhausting, right? It's never easy. It's never straightforward. But that's why we love it. It's the emotional roller coaster. I have to say, the people I was texting back here who were like staying up and watching the game, and everyone was so over the moon. I was so emotionally drained in that stadium between that and doing my job that I actually felt empty. It's only like yesterday, really, when I rewatched the game, that I could really start to like feel the joy.
There's so much content coming out still at the moment.
And I think that's what I'm loving. I think when we got the win, it was just this like relief. I mean, I was so emotionally involved in the touchdown drive at the end. I forgot the Bengals were getting the ball back and there was still 20 off the clock. It kind of escaped my mind. Then I was like, oh God, now we have to like defense has to make a stop. And then when Aaron Donald got the sack, it was just this like, okay, relief. It's done. So
and it's also, I don't know if you've seen the footage of Matthew Stafford didn't actually know that we'd got that because he couldn't watch.
Couldn't watch.
So he's got his head in a towel and someone had to tell him. It's like, you've now won, and it's just crazy. Exactly. And he had to go back on the field.
Yeah, I think Aaron Donald said it himself. It's just this like relief, euphoria thing. That actually I didn't have that like, yes, we're world champions. Because then like Monday morning I woke up and you're just tired and then you're jet lagged and all the rest of it. So it's just this like roller coaster. Now it's like, oh, the Rams have won the whole thing. And I think that's what I'm loving is seeing all the clips coming out. So all like the mic type stuff, all this behind the scenes from the parade, because we love this team because we love these guys on the team and seeing their joy in it. It's part of me just wishes that I'd been able to stay in LA for a couple of extra days and go to the parade. I was like, damn it, I didn't think that through.
No, there's definitely some good footage coming out, and we'll obviously, hopefully all the Les Snead has now got to do his bit as he does always.
Here's the thing. I don't think we're in as bad shape as everyone likes to say we are. Because there are about 6 big contracts. If you restructure Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald, OBJ, even Cooper Kupp, there's a few big contracts. If you restructure them the right way, we're fine, cap space wise. And I think we have proven that we do not care about draft picks. I am not concerned. Cooper Kupp was a 3rd round draft pick.
Exactly.
Bryson Hopkins had a great game. No one knew who he was before Sunday outside of like the Rams organization. I am not concerned about the draft pick.
No, me neither.
It's very difficult to run it back. I'm not saying we're going to, because we don't know he'll be back or not. And Von Miller likely won't be. But I'm not like we're going to go from 1st to 31st next year. I'm not concerned.
No, not at all. If you listen to Von Miller's interview on James Corden the day after the Super Bowl, he's ready to come back.
See, I heard he was going to try free agency. I can't keep up with these guys.
He says he loves LA. Why would I want to do anywhere else? He says he wrote a letter to the Lombardi Trophy a couple of months before winning it. So he loves that trophy.
Of course you do. And there's that great clip at the parade of OBJ and Aaron Donald basically like, you come back, I'll come back. You come back, I'll come back.
Yeah. Love it.
It'll be fine. And it's
It'll be great.
What we had this moment in the sun, and not many teams get this.
No, definitely not. And we will definitely be pushing for more. And the content that you guys have been putting out on Sky and obviously everything that you've been doing, Hannah, is great as always. And we're going to see everything back into the new season.
I assume so. I don't know what's happening yet. I haven't spoken to anyone.
No, I can't see that. And obviously, I've been on a couple of Jeff's podcasts recently as well, and he can't say anything more than good things about yourself. So
I'm quite fond of him too.
I'll let him know. But no, Hannah, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And we had to obviously do this. We were obviously messaging each other during it. I may have admitted to you that I cried at the final whistle. I didn't.
Yes, this is the thing. I was getting these messages from people like, I cried, and I was like, is there something wrong with me? Why aren't I feeling it? And I've come to the conclusion it was just sheer exhaustion.
I think it was called adrenaline as well.
Yeah, I had the complete depletion of adrenaline. I was just like, Rams won the Super Bowl, yay! Now I'm like, Rams won the Super Bowl.
But no, Hannah, thank you very much for obviously coming on this. Obviously, the special podcast that we obviously have through the summer. Keep doing what you're doing. We will obviously be in touch, and we can do this again next year. God knows what we'll be talking about then.
Let's do it again soon. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Hannah. Take care.